You're listening to the Good News Podcast with Jamie Holtom, brought to you by NBUC.
Welcome, everyone. Thanks so much for checking out the Good News Podcast. In this episode, we have an in-depth conversation with our Brampton Fire Chief, Bill Boyce. Bill is an inspiration, an amazing leader, and we're going to talk about the impact of COVID on the fire department, the leadership challenges he faced through this time, and mental health, which impacts all of us, but especially those who are firefighters in what they experience every single day. I think you're really going to enjoy this session. Let's dive in. Welcome everybody to the Good News Podcast. So glad that you could join us today. As always, we've got a very special guest. This is just I can't wait to get to know this amazing, inspiring leader in our city. This is Bill Boyce. Bill is our Brampton Fire Chief. And Bill, thanks for joining us on the Good News Podcast. I've been looking forward to this conversation for a long time. We were just saying we have many coffees and sit down and just, I don't know, I think really get inspired and encouraged by each other and pray that others will experience that today as well. So thanks so much for joining us on the Good News Podcast today. Maybe a great way to start would just be a little introduction of yourself, your history with Brampton. And yeah, I'd love for people to get to know you a little bit.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much, Jamie, for having us. And you're right. It's today's world right now. We're doing a virtual coffee, we'll call it today, but yeah, I'm very excited to be here and share a little bit with you. And you know what, my name's Bill Boyce. I'm the fire chief with the city of Brampton and been the chief since 2017. But I started my career in Brampton Fire and Emergency Services back in 2004 it was. And then had a little hiatus and spent some time as a chief in Barrie and then came back in 2017 and just really do, love the city, the people in our department. I really had strong ties to it. And honestly, it is a real honor and a privilege to be the leader of this emergency services organization in the city. And I think I'm very fortunate to have that. It comes with a lot of responsibility, but it's exciting and it's challenging. And I think, honestly, it's to make some positive difference in the community does mean a lot. So thank you for having me, Jamie.
Oh, for sure, Bill, for sure. And I'd love to, in a little bit, love to chat a bit about some of the joys and the challenges of this role and being in the fire department. I wanted to kind of go back a little bit to how you even got into this line of work. Because I for those that don't know, I'm privileged to be the chaplain with the Brampton Fire Department, and it really is a privilege. Like it's such when we talk about the fire family, like there really is a family atmosphere. And my experience has been almost, I think everyone I've met who has become a firefighter, it's kind of like a calling on their life. Like there is something that they feel led to be in this field, and it's a very special role. And so, Bill, yeah, how did it all work out for you to find your way into this area of work and become a firefighter?
Sure, happy to kind of touch on that. But first, Jamie, just want to thank you for being our chaplain. And I know we get to talk a lot of times and sometimes about difficult things, but just appreciate your support and everything that you do for the department. You're so well respected and thought of in our department by all 550 plus people. So thank you for that. Yeah. And how I got started. So it is, we talk about a calling and a family, a fire family or a second family. It really rings true for me too, because my family, my grandfather was a firefighter and a fire chief. My father was a firefighter and a fire chief and just recently retired from the fire service. Okay. My brother is a sergeant in the police force, and my other brother is an acting captain in a neighboring fire department here in the GTA. So it really is a family, I'll say, tradition. But I guess I grew up with it. I grew up around the fire station, through seeing my dad and going, and it was just second nature. I don't know when I ever made the conscious decision to be a firefighter. It just felt like it was always going to happen. And it does feel like something that you are called to do. And I think, especially when you reflect back on it, I mean, I can think of some moments where I was, trying to be an aspiring hockey player, and that wasn't probably going in the best direction. And I thought I need to, do something positive with my life. And it was just a natural transition to be like, I'm going to go and get my firefighter education and training. I'd done some university, and I did my emergency medical technician as well. And then was fortunate enough to get hired in Brampton back in 2004. And it really is a life-changing moment. I will say, when I got the call, from the HR department that you've been successful and, we'd like to offer you a job. I can remember exactly where I was. Wow. And what I was doing that exact moment. Like you don't forget those type of calls. And it really is. You look back on it now, I guess 16, 17 years later, and it flies by and you're halfway through a career, I guess you will say. And just some of the amazing things you've been able to be a part of and do. It's really an honor, but it was something I will say that I just felt like it was something that I was almost like born to do and be a part of.
Yeah. Well, that's cool how there's so many in your family that have been in this field in firefighting, and there's just such a natural calling for you. That's I love it. I mean, your family get-togethers. I mean, I know we're in COVID. We'll talk a bit about that here in this episode. But your family get-togethers must be very interesting with everyone having this experience of firefighting, but in different places too. I think so. It'd be quite the conversations I bet you guys must have when you get together as a family.
Well, a lot of interesting stories, from especially when you hear about what happened, through kind of my dad's generation or grandfather's generation. It's so much has changed. Like it's hard to even imagine some of the challenges that they faced, in the fire service compared to what we deal with now, and just how much things have evolved and changed. It is incredible to hear, to kind of see where we've came from. And you're right, though. There is some very interesting stories. Firefighters and police and paramedics, they do see a lot of things in society a lot of people may not be aware of. And it does, it's some very interesting dinner talk for sure.
I bet. Yeah. Bill, this is a great opportunity for people to hear a bit more detailed, maybe drilling down a little bit on what it's like to be a firefighter, to be in this area of work. What are some of your favorite memories throughout the year so far? What are some of the greatest joys that you have in this experience? And
I think some of the greatest memories, it will be, I think a couple items. It's really about the people that I've met and that I've worked with throughout the years. And then some of the differences I'll say you've made in people's lives that I don't know. And I wouldn't have seen them since, the day that some of these emergencies happened. But if I think back to when I was a recruit firefighter and walking down to Station 203, which is over on Chrysler Drive, there where our new headquarters will be, and then meeting 26 people that I was part of a recruit class with, and still have so many close friendships with those people, even though we're, not in the same station and we're in different roles now and different levels, you still have those bonds. And then working at Station 204 as part of the hazmat team over on Queen and McLaughlin there, if Station 204, and just some of the friendships and bonds with those firefighters that we've been in some very, life and death situations with at times. And you build those bonds as part of a family and a team, and they never go away, despite maybe you moving on to a different role or place. And then I think back to some of the difficult situations we went to, and there's been some tragic events. And then there's been some events that you got there and they were extremely difficult, but they ended up turning out positive, whether it's saving somebody's life or, saving a building or a home or somebody's pet. Like there's been so many stories that you recall back to and you remember, faces and where you were and what you were doing. And that does give you motivation. And I'll say in this role, it's a little bit different because you're not on the front lines responding to emergencies, but really, as a leader, you're there to help make sure that you give the resources and everything needed so that our people can be out there serving, 700,000 plus residents. And so you make a positive impact in a different way, but it still is meaningful, right? When you're able to help them in a way or provide them something that makes their job better. That part is rewarding. It's just a little bit different now.
Yeah. Well, and some people will be watching this today or listening to this. You may have also experienced that the role that you started at in your company or in your organization, it may be very different from where you are today. And what I love, Bill, is you've if I could say, kind of come through the ranks, like as fire chief, what it is to be like on the truck, going to the fire, or going to the accident, or whatever it might be. And I love that piece of your leadership and what you bring.
I think that's an important, sometimes as leaders, you really have to put yourself in other people's shoes. And it doesn't mean you don't have to make tough decisions or decisions that sometimes may not be the most popular, but you try to have the lens on it. And I will say, like, for the person on the front line, whether in the fire station or they're out inspecting buildings, what does this mean to them with some of the things and decisions we're making as an organization? And when you can have that perspective and think about it, I think it does help you in your decision-making process. And it does help you also maybe a little bit in how you implement things too. I mean, you might know that there's a decision that has to be made and things have to be done, but sometimes I think it's how you go about it, right? And if you can do it genuinely and honestly, and and sometimes it requires empathy and care and compassion in how you do these things, I think that makes a difference in the outcome or the end goal. But to say it's easy is not always true, right? Most times as leaders, you're given situations that there's no probably prescriptive path forward. You deal with a lot of gray areas, and the higher you get up, you deal with more and more challenging things that weren't able to be solved, I'll say, maybe at some other levels, so that reaches the position you're in, and then you have to make sometimes the ultimate decision on these things, and that's hard, right? I know it weighs on leaders. It doesn't matter if you're in the fire department, you work in a bank, an office, a factory. There's a lot of parallels there, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I think, my guess is not everyone really thinks about that. Like, okay, here's Bill Boyce. He's the fire chief. Like, what a great job. And it is like, I hear you, Bill.
Yeah,
it's a privilege. It's a big responsibility. But friends, like, who are listening to this, watching this today, please don't miss this. Like, it is a huge leadership role. And Bill, you just named some things that are so key, I believe, to good leadership, which I see in you, like so powerful. You live this stuff out, your authenticity, your transparency, your openness, but also your ability to be strategic and make decisions collaboratively. Like all those are so important things. Bill, as we've come through and coming through this pandemic and COVID, I don't know, we've all been impacted, man, like in so many ways. But the fire department, I mean, you can't not go. Like, we are staying at home. We're told to stay at home. The fire department can't stay at home. Like, they got to still go out to calls and go to people's homes and stuff. And I know it's been a huge shift for you. So what is maybe just around the pandemic, how you have had to lead differently through this time, and just some of the ramifications, the pivots that you guys have had to make.
Yeah, and I think back to, so one of the roles as fire chief I have is also I'm in charge of emergency management. So that touches now with the pandemic, touches on so many aspects of how we, open and close things at the city and how we navigate through the emergency. So that adds an additional layer. But I think back to early January, we started bringing our emergency operations team together and, dealing with this thing called coronavirus, and didn't know a lot about it. I remember it was one of the first meetings I had after Christmas break, coming back in early January, just to kind of start to sort out what is going on here. Is this going to impact us? How is this going to change our life? And then obviously we see where things evolve. But I really think back to March the 12th, just before, NBA the night before had shut down.
Oh, Bill, I still remember that day. Exactly. The NBA shut down the night before. Our middle son got up that morning and yells down, "Dad, did you hear what happened?" Like, for him, the biggest thing was the NBA shutting down, right? Yes. And then, like you said, that next day, everything just rolled out after that, right?
So I remember there, I remember driving and then being on the phone with the CAO and the mayor and turning around and coming back to City Hall as we talked about activating our emergency plan. And then that was probably in the evening. And then in the morning, we put together a special team on the fire department to deal with COVID. We also had a team throughout the city as well. So kind of two teams in parallel. But on March 13th, as a city, we decided to shut down City Hall. And we were one of the first to do that and take that drastic step that, we're going to shut things down, really in the protection of the people that work and live in the city. Yeah. And you know what? That was a tough decision. There was no real, exact roadmap of what this looks like. To shut down a city within a few hours is, a major, major thing. And then back to the part about being a fire department, just because we shut down a lot, some of the city facilities, our staff, they had to work that day. We had to have the next shift come in on Saturday morning, and there was so many unknowns. And you're putting out protocols and procedures, and things are changing by the minute, right? And you've heard of the term, speed sometimes over perfection. Yeah. And we really had to employ that philosophy because we had to make sure we were doing everything we could as quickly as possible, but maybe not with some of the diligence and time that you would take when you'd implement some other initiative. And I really give a lot of credit to our staff that had to show up in difficult times and with a lot of unknowns, responding out in the community with a lot more unknowns. And we, as our management team, are also giving them new directions daily and multiple times per day. Okay, don't do this now. And some things that were fundamentally different that don't happen in the fire service. Some bigger, some smaller, with from PPE to how they interact in the station. Like if you've ever been to a fire station, it's basically, it's like a home with the big fire truck in it, and there's a kitchen and a living quarters, and it is like a firefighter's home. And we're making them not eat together, which is a staple. That's a staple of the fire service for hundreds of years. They come together around the table, and we're saying you've got to do this. You've got to wear masks together. You can't interact, and that's kind of fundamentally against everything that we've been about. And it's just how we clean the fire station. I will jokingly say that they're cleaner than they've ever been. It's we use the term kind of the institutionalization of the fire hall, but it's just that extra level of protection, right? And I know that's not easy on people, and I know too it's wearing on them, right? It's been 15 months plus, and even longer if you look back to January, started dealing with this stuff. So it takes a toll on everybody, and because you're also dealing with it at home too. You just don't come to work and deal with COVID. You go home and you deal with COVID. Your partners, your family, your friends, they're dealing with different stressors. It's not easy, and I'll say this third wave has been probably harder than even I expected. I knew that with the third wave coming, it would be difficult, but it's been harder because some of the amount of cases we're seeing, the time that we've been in this. I think it's compounded to make things more difficult.
Yeah. No, I that's my experience too, just in my circles, but also in my own life and leadership. Just have felt the challenge of because I don't know. Yeah, just you saw a couple waves coming, but the third one, it just keeps going, and there's all these opportunities. Working from home, it can be really good. Being with family more can be really good, but sometimes it can be challenging as well. And one of the things I was hoping to talk with you about, Bill, is just around mental health these days, even from a leadership perspective, because I think you're right. Like it's hard. It's a really challenging time right now. And so I just wondered, even as a leader yourself, what are you doing to try to stay healthy? How is that working in your own life? And then maybe talk a bit about how it's happening within the department as well.
Sure. Yeah. Maybe just, even personally, it is difficult, right? Like I said, I deal with this day in, day out, and it's 24 hours a day. A lot of times that things are happening, and you try to get out and exercise. You do try to disconnect when you can and spend a little bit of time with family, right? With the wife, a 10-year-old daughter, I have a 1-year-old son, which is it really puts things in perspective when you sit there and you play or you hold them and doing stuff like that. It does take you away, and you do need those breaks. To be honest, am I great at it? Sometimes, no. It is hard to disconnect because there is always something that needs to be done. There's always an issue that you're trying to work on, a problem you're trying to solve. So that is tough. And again, with the long duration. But back to the people in the department, I think I've had a lot of conversations with firefighters, especially over the last, I'll say, month, and people saying that they're struggling and it's difficult. And I'll say the good part about that is that people are talking about it and recognizing it. It's unfortunate there is those struggles, and we do have a lot of resources. We have a tremendous peer support team, right? That's out there. There's a lot of talk about mental health. So I'll say that is a good part about it, that we're at a point as an organization and the culture that, that stigma is reduced to say, what, this is tough. I'm having a tough time, whether it be solely because of work, whether it be, compounded by some issues at home and work and just the broader COVID impact. So I'll say that's a positive. Now we have to make sure that we can do everything to support our people. And we're really challenging, even at the individual station level, to make sure that people keep an eye on each other. Mm-hmm. Because, as a chief, and we have 13 stations and 4 different platoons and 8 divisions, that I don't see everybody, right? And some of our leaders don't see everybody every day, but those crews, if they can work to keep an eye on each other, they're together for 24 hours a day. So you can kind of, gauge how a person's reacting and doing, and really, call on them to make sure that they can help each other out, which is, hopefully going to help. But it's definitely not easy. And I think there's a lot of positives on the horizon, though. We look at the vaccinations. Our firefighters have been fortunate now. Most of them have received their second dose now. So there is some light, I'll say, at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And when we talk, Bill, about just the challenge of COVID and mental health, I think sometimes people, don't always grasp how the challenges. We talked about some of the joys of being a firefighter, eh? And there's so many. I'm thinking about the graduations. Like I was thinking about your graduation. It must have been amazing with your family of firefighters all there cheering you on. And now Bill is up front when the new recruits come through, and I get to be a part of that as well as chaplain. And I mean, it's one of the best experiences like all year, just to have these women and men who have worked so hard to get there, to get into. It can be tough to get in, and then to come through the training and be officially. There's so many great things like that about being a firefighter, and I think everybody loves firefighters. You know what I mean? I won't go into the calendar thing, but you know what I mean? Like kids on streets, like But I don't know if people are aware of the trauma that is part of the daily experience on the job, where you go to calls, where you're taking people out of vehicles and going into homes where there's devastation and tragedy. Most of us read in the news, but don't experience firsthand on a daily basis. And just maybe, Bill, just some of the way things have shifted. I've seen it just even in my time as chaplain, where my sense is there was a day where it was just, put your head down and keep going. Like you're soft if you admit that you have any kind of challenges from what you're experiencing. We're tough. Like we can just, my sense is that's shifting. And I just maybe want to name that, because I've seen that in the fire department as well as anywhere else in our culture. And I think it's not just the fire department, but I think, there's a stigma around mental health and stress and trauma that if we don't name it more openly, we just want, who knows who's listening to this, that maybe this will help them come out, if you will, just to name that they're challenged because of something they've experienced in the past. And it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to not wrestle this only inside on your own. And so just some of the shifts, Bill, that you've seen over your time, and what happens within our fire department these days. You mentioned peer support, just some of those things that are helping our firefighters deal with some of this stuff, because this is the Good News podcast, and I think that's really good news that we keep growing in this area in our department, but also in our culture.
Yeah, we talk about one of the term you hear a lot about, reducing the stigma, right? And that's an ongoing thing. That isn't something that happens. We'll do it for a year and then we'll be good. It requires constant communication, constant thought. And I will say, our staff now responding to these, especially with COVID in the third wave, we're responding to emergencies with 6 COVID positive people in a home, or we're responding to the same home 3 times in one day over a short time period for different people having to go to the hospital because they're getting, so sick from COVID. And I know sometimes people see the case numbers on TV, but you really see that human side of it and the human impact. And firefighters and police and paramedics, like I might have said earlier, we respond to so many emergencies that the general public probably has no awareness of. And you're responding inside people's homes. You see some difficult things. So that does put stress on firefighters. And we've talked, I'll say from when I started, the discussion about mental health, I don't really remember one, to be honest. And that was only 2004. So that's not that long ago. And then you look at where we are in recent years about, their specific training through a program called the Working Mind, or Road to Mental Readiness, it was formerly called, where people are talking about this to reduce stigma. We also, with our recruits, we educate them very, very early on. We have a recruit graduation next week that it's going to be virtual, and it's not going to be the same, unfortunately. But I will talk about that, about the stigma. And I'll talk to the families. We bring the families in to have a discussion to educate them. Because sometimes people can put on a brave face for a work period, a shift. We've probably all seen in our different workplaces, you can probably get through your 10-hour day or 12-hour day or a 24-hour shift. But then when people go home, sometimes that becomes apparent. And we really want to let the families know that there's resources there so that they can, request help as well. Because sometimes people put on a brave face, and sometimes there is that, worry about feeling weak, which it's absolutely not. And we try to talk about that all the time. It takes more strength to get out there and talk about it and help each other. But, hopefully with the family's help, and, we have resources like our peer support team and our employee family assistance program, which has a number of traumatic, stress related supports that we have. They all kind of work together. And it's, there's no one, I'll say, silver bullet, but it takes that constant work at it. One of our things in our fire master plan that we talked about was how we empower our workforce. And one of that is through really a healthy and well, whether it be firefighter or prevention officer of any of the staff we have. We look at the physical part, the fitness part, the mental part. There's a number of nutritional part. There's so many aspects that go into mental health, wellness, and just general overall well-being that, we have to make sure we're working on all of them too, right? We just can't focus in one area. So I think there's a lot of great conversations happening. I will say it's fundamentally shifted in a very short time period. So that's a positive. Do we still have more work to do? I think so. And I'll admit too, one of the toughest days for me in the fire service was we had a captain who took his own life that I had worked with, and that was extremely difficult. And it was hard on the crew because a lot of us didn't see it coming. We didn't think it was that bad. We have this very senior and strong and brave captain, and then we didn't realize how bad he was hurting, and that was tough. But I guess if there's a silver lining in it, that it really helps people learn, and I think that was one of the turning points too in the department, where people kind of took a step back and thought, I think we need to do something different here. We need to learn a little bit more. And that was only back in 2012. So, I hope we're going in the right path forward. And, it is definitely a focus of ours. And it's something that as leaders that we all have to be cognizant of, whether you're a frontline leader, a supervisor, right up to if you're leading your organization, right? Mental health crosses all organizational boundaries. It doesn't matter what profession or occupation you work in. So
yeah, absolutely. No, Bill, and I just would want to say thanks. Like I think you, the leadership team with the Brampton Fire, are doing a tremendous job around this. And as you said, it doesn't mean it's not done. We just need to keep working at it. And I agree that incident that you named, it saddens everyone like so much. And yet we talk about God's redeeming work. And one of the ways that God can redeem something like that is for us to get better at this so that doesn't happen again. And we can't guarantee that. It's an imperfect world. It's a hard world. It's a complex world. But I really just want to commend you guys, the department, for working at this. And I've seen it change in the years that I've been chaplain, and it's encouraging. And just to say, whoever's listening to this today, maybe you lead people yourself. It could be within your own family. It could be within a smaller organization or a larger organization. Whatever it is, just maybe be aware. Maybe this is sparking something in you to not only take care of yourself, that you are worth taking care of. Your leadership will be better if you take care of yourself. 100% it will. But also maybe there's some people on your team who you just want to check in with, who you just want to encourage them to whatever needs to happen to take care of themselves as well. And just recognize that the more we talk about depression, anxiety, mental health, stress, the better off we'll all be. It doesn't need to be something that's closed, man. Let's open it up and talk about it. There's all kinds of resources out there. And the more we talk about it, the more healing and hope will come. So yeah, great job that you guys are doing with that Bill. That's for sure. Yeah, for sure. I'm thinking as people are listening to this, like I often hear people wonder what their life is, their purpose in life and their calling. And actually hear a lot of people who talk about wanting to be firefighter, that thing. So just for some fun, what would you say if people are listening on why you might choose to be a firefighter? Why would you answer that door?
Well, I think you can make an incredible difference in the community, right? It is a highly respected and a trusted position, which carries a lot of weight and responsibility with it, because the public does count on us. When everything goes really bad, the public knows that fire and emergency services will be there to help make the day better. So that's a tremendous responsibility, which brings with it tremendous satisfaction, I think, too, right? When you're there and you're able to help. It is, we've talked about the family aspect of it, right? That's incredible, that ability to make those strong partnerships and bonds with people that you work with. It is too. I think one of the nice things is it provides some great benefits too. Even if you look in terms of salary and benefits and security for your family, I mean, it's very well paid, and it has some difficult parts of it, but it's a tremendous job that people. It's extremely competitive. It is difficult to get in. We have about 2,000 people that apply for about 20 jobs. That's kind of probably our average one. So you got to, be in that top 1%. But like I say to everybody, if you persevere and you work at it, you can attain it. And it is, you ask any of the firefighters that you see on the street, if you're walking by a station or out at the community events as we start to open up after COVID here. And they'll all have a little personal story about what the job means to them. And there'll be a lot of common threads that you'll probably hear. So it's, I encourage anybody, talk to our firefighters, stop into a fire station if you're ever wondering what goes on. Not right now. We're just, we're still in COVID protocols, but very soon as we start to open up in the coming months, then I encourage you to get out there and hear from our firefighters. They'll tell you the greatest stories better than I will about what it means to them, right? So,
yeah, no, great, absolutely. There's lots of great stories out there, lots of great firefighters, and I would just echo what Bill said. If you're listening to this and maybe you've been trying to, it is competitive. Keep trying. I can't tell you how many times I've heard stories at the graduations where men and women will have been trying for years, and that's what makes a graduation so special. Some of them have been trying for years. And good thing they didn't stop trying because they finally got in and it worked out, and away you go. Hey, Bill, I mentioned this, that we might ask a few questions here at the end just to play with the good, because it's called the Good News Podcast. So how about what's some of the best news that you've ever received in your life? Maybe those top three, because it'd be hard to pick one. Top three best news that you've received throughout your life so far.
I'll say a tie for first is just when I found out I was having a son and a daughter. That's, number one, and together, right, with that. Some other awesome news, I'll say, is getting that call. I mentioned earlier, getting the call to join not only the fire department, but also to be the chief here. So, kind of they go together, that when they join the department, then to come back, I was shortly away there for Barrie, and then to rejoin and be able to lead a lot of the people that I've worked with and come up through the ranks with. That was tremendous. And I think maybe another cool one would be, I think when I got into my school program doing my PhD, that was quite an accomplishment that I'm still working at. But I was very proud just to be able to get to that point, and still working away at it. It's slowly coming, but that was, I'll say, some good news that I had.
That's awesome. Absolutely. One more. Good news sometimes hasn't happened yet. We call that hope. And so what would be the good news headline that you would one day like to see around whatever it might be?
I just think, just to the whole community, that we are going to get back to a new normal, and I think we're going to be stronger for it. Yeah. I think COVID has, as much as it's forced us to be apart, I think it's going to bring us together too, in a lot of ways, that we're going to value some of the things that we took for granted before. Just simply getting together, simply having a close friendship, going for a coffee, going and playing a game of golf, or getting out and doing something outdoors, and thinking about mental health and wellness. I think there's going to be a new perspective on that, which down the road here, we're going to be better for it in the long run, because we went through this extremely difficult year and a half here.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. The headline reads, "Don't stay home. You're free to go."
Yes.
Right on. Well, Bill, as you know, at NBUC where I am, we have a prayer trailer. We have a prayer ministry where people are praying every hour of every day, 24/7 prayers called. And we pray for the community and for our city. And certainly we pray for the Brampton Fire Department and emergency services. Just as we close here today, what are some of the things that people could be praying for when we think about the department, when we think about the fire and emergency services?
I think just a prayer for everybody's health and wellness on the department. That would mean a lot. Just to have us in your thoughts, that would mean a lot, and keep the people in the community that are having trouble too. They went through some tough times. People have lost jobs. People have suffered some health impacts from COVID. Just to keep our community in their mind, right? Our city, right? 700,000 plus people. We're all one big city here, right? So I think if they could do both those things, I think that would mean a lot and help a lot of people. So
yeah, awesome. We're on it, right on.
Great.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's beautiful. Hey, well, Bill, just want to say thanks again, man. I just so appreciate you. We appreciate you in the Brampton Fire Department, and I hope I know people have caught a little in a deeper level what it all entails, both your role as chief in in our city, but also what it is to be a firefighter, the joys, the challenges. If people take on this encouragement to pray for our department, for our city, I think people now know a little bit more what that might look like, and what some of the needs are, and some of the real experiences. So yeah, thanks so much for being a part of the Good News podcast, for living this good news as you do, man, and just for the leadership that you offer to our city.
Well, thank you, Jamie, for having us, and thank you for all you do for our department too as our chaplain. And hopefully the next podcast we can maybe film it in a coffee shop, a live version rather than.
I love it. Let's do that, man. Let's do that. Absolutely. Awesome. Well, thanks again, Bill, and thanks everyone for joining us on the Good News podcast. So glad you could be with us. I just encourage you to subscribe to this and to also to share it with others so more people can hear some good news in this city of Brampton and beyond. Have a great day, everyone. We'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening to the Good News podcast with Jamie Holtom. If you liked what you heard today, please share it with a friend who may benefit from today's conversation. And if you want to hear more, be sure to subscribe to this show and turn on your notifications so you never miss an episode. Thanks again. We hope you enjoyed today's discussion, and we'll see you next time.